Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out People of Reddit. Story 1. I influence my husband's playlist when he annoys me. This is gonna be fairly short, but I think it will still make some people giggle. Now anyone who has been in a long-term relationship knows sometimes your partner just annoys you. It's nothing serious, you still love each other but some things still get on your nerves. Now my husband of 10 years likes to listen to the playlist Apple Music made for him based on his interests, while working from home. He also has his Apple Music account hooked up to all the Google speakers in the house. At one point we realized that what I listen to via the speakers sometimes shows up on his list, but also random stuff none of us listened to. So now whenever he goes on my nerves or I'm mad at him, I will play the most unhinged crap music via one of the speakers on the low volume for hours, so that the Apple algorithm thinks he's interested in it and will mix it into his playlist. It annoys him and so far he hasn't figured out it's me, because of course this doesn't happen directly after we bicker. It probably shouldn't bring me as much joy as it does. And for everyone who doesn't have a sense of humor, rest assured I love this man to pieces and it's not that serious. Story 2. Fudge reporting numbers. I had been in reporting for nearly a decade when my director asked me to fudge some incident numbers by 10% in his benefit. I told him I can't do that as it is a SOX violation. He told me it wasn't. So I explained to him that fudging the numbers by 10% would impact contract penalties in our benefit. JE then told me to fudge the numbers or I was fired. So I fudged the numbers and put a disclaimer under the horizontal axis that stated all numbers have been adjusted by 10% as directed by director. He didn't bother to read the chart's disclaimer and presented it to executive leadership. They saw the disclaimer and asked about it. My director told them that I was mad and this was to get back at him. I was called in to explain the disclaimer. I brought my laptop with me as I figured what was going on. Upon entering the conference room I see those present and realize either me or my director was getting fired. They asked me some questions and I explained why I put the disclaimer on the chart as it was a SOX violation and I wasn't going to prison to protect my job. They wanted proof that the numbers were adjusted, so I opened up the modified report and the original report. I highlighted the modifications. They were appeased by my explanation and asked me to return to my desk. An hour later, my director was escorted out of the building. TLDR, my boss asked me to adjust some numbers so the company wouldn't be impacted by financial penalties. After arguing and him threatening my job, I did what he asked. But I out a disclaimer on the chart that the numbers were changed. He was fired for demanding I fudge the numbers. Story 3. Missing cat. Hi all, I got a boyfriend not too long ago, but he's gone now. After dating for a month, we moved in together. I had a cat, he had a dog. Of course about my cat, I warned in advance, as well as he about his dog. I asked beforehand if there would be any problems between our animals. He said no, his dog gets along with everyone. I asked this because there was a possibility of my cat at my parents' house. So in the end the animals didn't get along and my boyfriend just started hating my cat. I offered to send him to his parents, but he kept saying no, let it be as it is. And so for one weekend, I go to a friend, leaving the guy alone. I have a fun weekend, and before leaving home, I get the message. I went out to the store and apparently forgot to close the window, and came back no Hessie cat's name. I get home sad and start typing lost cat ads. He reassures me in every way, but I only care about my cat. A couple of days go by and the number I left on the ad man dials and said, "Here's your phone number, they are responsible for the cameras in our house, maybe it will somehow help find a cat." I dialed the number, I was explained how to access the cameras, there was some kind of application for tenants of the house. And you can't imagine how shocked I was when I saw that my boyfriend took my cat out himself at night and he never came back. Do you have any idea what a motherfucker that is? I did not tell him about it, but the next day while he was at work, I took his dog to my parents. Do everything according to his scheme, In tears I called him saying Gucci ran away, Gucci dog's name. And he comes home in a panic, asking how? I say I left him at the store, but apparently the leash was taken and he ran away. I know it sounds stupid. He starts accusing me that I can't forgive him for leaving the window open and my cat ran away. After listening to this for a few days and when he was at work again, I packed all my stuff, brought my dog and left for my parents. In the evening he texted me happy that his dog was home, but didn't even ask where I was or where my stuff was. I silently texted him the video of him taking my cat out and we never spoke again. Story 4. Coworker tried to get me fired and it backfired on him. Repost here, guess it didn't meet the guidelines for pro-revenge. Alright, so I, 28F, used to work as a custodian at a fitness center with this dude, 43M, let's call him Moby. Sorry for the long post, I've been steamed about this for years and wanted to get it all off my chest. Moby had beef with pretty much everyone, not just those on the cleaning crew. His main thing was going to complain to supervisors about co-workers, but most of these claims were inflated and exaggerated. At first I had no idea he would do this at all. Every day Moby would go out of his way to be friendly to me, strike up conversations, compliment my baking when I'd bring in treats, and was generally a pleasant guy if a bit too friendly. He tended to bring up the subject of dating a lot and how tough it was for him. He was balding, morbidly obese, lived with his mother, didn't have much in the way of money, and I, along with a few others, got the vibe he wasn't too happy to hear I was seeing someone. Still, he never crossed a line and I thought we were cool. After a few months where my shift changed and I came back to work my usual hours with him, Moby had done a complete 180. He essentially gave me the cold shoulder and he seemed to be avoiding me. I figured maybe something happened while I was gone and he was having a rough time, except he was still acting normally with everyone else at our job. I brush it off and go about work. We get a new supervisor. About 3 months later I'm talking to my other coworker, let's call him Dave. Dave works the exact same shift as us and we're talking about Moby. I don't like to pry but his cold shoulder behavior is making it hard to work with him. I asked Dave if something happened while I was away or if I said something to offend Moby without realizing. Well, as it turns out, Dave tells me that he, a few select co-workers, and most of our higher-ups have heard from Moby that I'm a lazy good-for-nothing who takes 2-hour breaks at a time and he has to do most of the cleaning. He also demanded I be fired, multiple times. From the first day our new supervisor had set foot in the center he had been telling him lies. Dave thought I knew already. Moby was even telling lies to the people who come to work out, literally gossiping about me to patrons for months and basically trying to turn everyone there against me and urging them to make complaints themselves. My jaw drops. Not only is none of this true, but I was the one who had to pick up the slack for Moby and was even asked to clean areas he was supposed to because he wasn't doing his job. I found this out later and would have refused if I'd known I was taking on extra responsibilities. The general consensus is they should have fired him years ago. Not long after this, I talked to my supervisor. He says Moby has in fact been talking to him and gave him an ultimatum, either I go or he does. My supervisor is getting sick of it and flat out says there's no way he would choose Moby over me, and in the few months he's been here I've basically proven myself to be the best employee there. I mention everything else Dave has told me. Eventually, Moby gets called into a meeting about his conducts and gets written up. To this day I don't know why he was gunning for me to be fired. Dave thinks he was mad I had gotten engaged and being recognized for my work, but I don't know for sure. I just knew I wasn't satisfied with the outcome. I know I could have let it go and turn the other cheek, but I felt so hurt and betrayed. I wanted to pay him back with more than a little reprimanding from our boss. Following the meeting, I end up having to take multiple shifts that week. It's worth mentioning at this point I'm acquainted with pretty much everyone, and to toot my own horn a bit, they all have a generally positive opinion of me, custodians, trainers, front desk, even people who work in the pool and building maintenance etc. and the higher-ups to boot, or at least appreciate my work ethic, that I'm always willing to lend a hand or an ear, and share my baking hobby. I say this because the rest of the week when I chit-chat with my co-workers, I end up bringing up the whole fiasco with Moby. Keep in mind, he's already made some enemies, but this is the final straw. Word gets around and most of our co-workers are shocked and appalled he would go so far to make me out like a lazy bum and get me fired. By the end of the month Moby has essentially become a pariah, in part because he's still talking sh*t about me, but not to the patrons or managers anymore, and no one is having it. I hear about Moby getting shut down, chewed out, and told to shut up on my behalf. So, I basically do the exact thing Moby was trying to do to me, though to be fair, most of it he did to himself anyway. Edit. I forgot to mention he tries to get back into my good graces, likely so everyone will stop being mad at him, but I just ice him out too the exact way he did to me. After I left he did get fired, but it didn't have anything to do with me. I'm guessing enough people had enough of his crap and they decided to either stop covering for him or he got someone else angry enough to earn another strike on his conduct. TLDR, possible r/nice guy co-worker suddenly starts ignoring me. Turns out he's been spreading lies to get me fired and tells other staff and patrons I'm a horrible employee when I've been unknowingly covering for his incompetence. He gets written up and through me telling everyone what he did and his continued efforts to ruin my reputation, he ends up disliked by everyone. Story 5. Rush Hour Traffic Revenge. TLDR at bottom, I know I'm a long-winded storyteller. You wouldn't believe how much I cut from the first draft of this story about a 5-minute traffic exchange. I work at a department store in a plaza off the main road into town, and getting out at rush hour is a nightmare. A lot of side roads and the interstate converge right next to the majority of businesses in town. This day was exceptionally backed up since an 18-wheeler flipped on the interstate. With the added traffic hitting town, there's always the crowd who are convinced some crappy back road will cut an hour off their commute. At the end of the back road of choice here, it's a right turn at a 4-way stoplight to keep going into town. So, everyone on it decided right on red actually means unless someone that has the green light T-bones us, we always have right of way. Eventually I made it up to second in line at the light. At this point I had been on this 8-mile stretch of road for 45 minutes with the same 2 older guys in Subarus both in front and behind me. About halfway through our third green light of being cut off by the right on red crowd, OL boy in front of me just plows through. The guy behind me actually starts enthusiastically clapping. Immediately I love his energy. It's traffic, so there's no going far, but guy in front makes it through the intersection. Once he fully cuts off the right on red crowd, I start creeping in. There's not enough room for the Subaru behind me, so he stops a little ahead of the stop bar to let people turning in / out of businesses through. Class act. So I'm just rolling up to the Subaru in front, and some guys turning out of the side road take major issue with me. They start waving around screaming at me to move so they can squeeze in. They have a small car but there's clearly no room. They just want to get in enough to cut off the guy behind me. Up until this point, I've just been happy to be sitting down and listening to my own music after an 8-hour retail shift. But again, just got done with an 8-hour retail shift, I had seen some entitlement. The audacity of these men to lean out of their car and scream at me so they can cut off this guy who was already letting people through broke something in me. Of course they had tried to intimidate the guy in front of me too and were already pulled up as much as possible, which made them boxed in by the people behind them, who were actually at the stop bar. So with my ears ringing with rage so loud I could barely hear them screaming, I pulled up so my back tire was just in front of their bumper. Basically making it so they can't move without hitting me. Sitting in my little shitbox wearing my pathetic retail uniform, I look the driver dead in his eyes, turn up my stupid dad rock to drown out their screams since all of us had our windows down, and put my car in park right as their light turns green. Can see the guy behind me is clapping again lol. To make it better, their entire green light cycle the traffic didn't move. Right as their light changed to red somebody turned off and made just enough space for me to move forward and let the Subaru behind me through. Of course I waved clapping guy up so he could continue the cycle of cutting this jackass off, and he caught on instantly and was visibly laughing. The last I saw as the light in front of me cleared was the entitled duo getting stuck in the same situation by the next person. TLDR, accident on interstate causes major traffic jam. People try to skirt the worst of it by taking a side street and abusing the right on red rule. After multiple light cycles of them cutting everyone off by going on red, myself and the car in front of me cut a particularly rude and entitled duo off and stopped the side street reign of tyranny. The car behind me plays heavy support, and the particularly entitled duo seem to have angled themselves perfectly for this to have continued for a while. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.